Hi, hello there. This is Dr. Samurai, a professor in Japan specializing in international social pathology. The topic of my minute lecture today is Mr. Ivan Milat, the Backpaker Killer. One thing that is exceptional today is he's Australian, not an American. Okay. However, he is, I think, the most well-known criminal in Australia. So I thought it would be better to include him exceptionally. What he did was in 1970s. Okay, there were many people from all over the world to come to Australia to enjoy its great nature by going around this big island by hitchhiking. It attracted so many youngsters, and he picked them up in his car, like 4WD. He took them into the area of his familiarity and then suddenly changed and killed 7 backpackers. So he was the most notorious serial killer in Australia. And it is unfortunate that this act of his gave Australia a kind of dangerous country for young, people to visit. He has been in multiple movies and TV documentaries, and most recently in 2015 there was a TV series called Catching Millet, which he hated so much. He wrote to me many years after what happened. They still are following me, kind of thing. He was in his Supermax isolation cell since his arrest. He also cut off his pinky finger by that plastic knife you use at the cafeteria, to make his appeal heard by the prosecution side. Look into some more details. He was born in 1944. Up until 1974, when he was arrested for his serial murder, he was arrested multiple times for petty crimes like for trespassing, grand theft auto, rape, dangerous driving, parole violation, robbery, illegal possession of guns and knives, and so on. So even before he came to be known as a serial killer, he was so many times arrested for petty crimes. What happened is like this. I'm going to follow what he did chronologically. Number one, in 1990, a English backpacker, Paul Onion, he picked up on the road. But because Ivan kept asking him questions, Onion started to feel suspicious of him. So he jumped out of his car and escaped from the danger. 2 years after, number two female back were killed very close to what happened to Mr. Onion. They were stabbed and raped, and one of the two females, she was shot multiple times and considered to have been used for shooting target. Very next year of those two female backpackers were killed, one couple who have been missing for years in Belanglo State Forest was found dead in the same area, in that Belanglo State Forest. And this lit a fire in a police to start out their serious investigations. And 1 month after that, one female who has been missing for more than 10 years was found in the form of, skull and bones. 3 days after that, a couple of man and woman who have been missing for over 10 years also were found dead. Thing is, the female's head was almost decapitated. It seemed that many victims were picked up at the Hume Highway. There's a highway called Hume. They were picked up on that highway, then taken to Belanglo State Forest and killed. As I have said, because of these series of backpacker murders, the myth that Australia being a very safe country to travel was completely denied. But I would like to re-emphasize, one woman was shot multiple times as shooting target, and another woman the head was almost decapitated. These two show strong hate of women in general by the perpetrator. And now I would like to move into Ivan that I know. Ivan was incarcerated at Goulburn Supermax prison for a life sentence, where there are many other Islamic terrorists are incarcerated that Mr. Ivan told me about too. Listen to this. The letters from him was always over 10 pages, and his handwriting was so perfectly ordered and coordinated. So the first time I received his letter, I was strongly impressed. There's no typos either. It was one of the most perfectly controlled handwritings I've ever seen. And because the security level of his prison was supermax, outsiders could not send books. So I used to enclose materials from the website, and I copied and pasted it on print paper and enclosed it in the same envelope. Materials of his interest means he was always fighting for freedom till he died. So I remember I gave him copies of American legal examples and habeas corpus and stuff like that, because I needed to give him something that felt like continuing our correspondences. His family was his father was an immigrant from Croatia. His mother was born and raised in Australia, and they had 14 children, and he is the 5th kid. 5. Knowing all that, I first asked him, was your parents strict to you? What, to other kids? Weren't you feeling lonely because there were so many other siblings, only one mother? I asked it directly to Ivan. He was consistent in denying all that. Not at all. Some web information says my father was violent, but that's a total lie. My father was a kind of father who, when I made some mistakes, never raised his hand and explained what point was wrong with what I did until I understand it. He emphasized it very much. I still remember. He reiterated how wonderful his family was. Although I asked him multiple times about whether he actually did it or not from different angles, his answer was always the same. I am innocent, which seemed immobile and unchangeable. His reason was that Clive Small, his investigator, was a kind of person who wanted to be successful in his career. He's the kind of investigator obsessed with his career. So for that, he kind of used the first victim, Paul Onion, who ran away and is still alive, to his advantage. Ivan kept saying that Clive Small distorted the fact that Paul Onion said win him over, as his denial was pretty much focused on the denial of the investigator Clive Small. So I asked him what happened with the rape charges, though, that happened even before this charge of serial murder. And his answer was very tactful. He goes, "It is true that I picked up 2 girls by my car. However, I got too friendly with one of them, get laid with her, not knowing they were lesbians. So after this, the other one started to get angry at what happened and made it up as rape." That's how he answered. So I always try to ask straightforwardly, So if what you're saying is true, there should be continuous murders going on even after you were arrested, right? And his answer was yes. There were some murders after my arrest. And at the time, I was still an amateur, just started out to be a researcher into this field. Because his denial was so solid and firm, I started to feel might possibly he's one of the very, very rare cases of being innocent. That's what I thought in the beginning. Because the investigator, Mr. Clive Small's reputation was not so good, even when I web searched it, and he seemed like the one Mr. Ivan told me. He wanted to be, a TV talent or something, by, using his ex-investigator career. There are those characters every country, right? Mr. Clive Small seemed very typical type of that kind of person. One other thing that made me feel that way was Ivan has one nephew, and that nephew wrote in his book that when our family had some kind of problems or troubles, Uncle Ivan was the first person who always come first to give us support. This kind of meant a lot to me, because I know not all, serial killers are psychopaths, not all of them, but I had that kind of a image before I contact serial killers in general. And they are not supposed to be kind to others. A psychopath is supposed to be emotional handicap, shallow emotion, and no empathy to others. That's a very very basic of criminal psychology. So the fact that he took care of his nephew's family so well kind of turned around my impression of Mr. Ivan. However, listen to this. Considering his persona, that is his total behavioral pattern, never look at one incident, but always we have to look at the patterns of behaviors. Even before the serial murders, he did trespassing, grand theft auto, rape, dangerous driving, parole violation, robbery, and illegal possession of firearms. These all-round, talent for any kind of crimes is a quintessential characteristic of being psychopath. Psychopath is supposed to be good at anything if he is put in that condition, in that environment. That's why psychopath is compared to a chameleon. He changes depending on where he is at. Although not by words, but his facial expressions. We could see so many mug shots of Mr. Ivan on website. Some clearly show that the expression that normal people would never show. Only the pathological liar do. He shows the kind of expressions momentarily, which is also a good characteristic of being a psychopath. And way he pushed his ask for appeal by cutting off his pinky finger using plastic knife. It is not something that the ordinary people could come up with. And his excuse of denying investigator in charge personally, all those things indicate he is the perpetrator. He also said to me that police found pieces of gun that was broken up between inside the walls of his house. And that height that those guns were found were just a level of human shoulders, or something like that. If I really wanted to, conceal it, do you think I would put them at such a site that is easily noticed? And did I have to break up the gun into pieces? I could, throw it away as a whole in a deep seas and stuff like that. And his excuses sounded too technical. So because of these two reasons, his pattern of criminal behaviors that can be seen very often with psychopaths. His expressions that he momentarily shows, which is very unusual with the ordinary people. Psychopaths are said to be reptiles and said to show very cold eyes in a very short moment when nobody notices. And this denial of the investigator in charge from the very detailed technical perspectives, these kind of fit the framework of him being a perpetrator. And okay, listen to this. He was arrested so many times since he was 13, right? However, on the other hand, he tried to emphasize how nice his family was, how perfect his parents were, and how kind his brothers were. These two things. If his family was so nice, he wouldn't have committed those petty crimes either. You understand what I'm saying? This also caught my attention. I mean, that he never admit negative aspects of his family. This is seen with so many other serial killers. Bad things are actually happening, but they hide it. They do not accept it, right? So there is this anger that lost place to go to, right? This comes up unexpectedly to himself. This accidental come up of his repressed anger led him to kill those backpackers. This is additional information about after Milat's biological father passed early, Milat's mother remarried, and he never get along with his stepfather. I'm coming to the conclusion of this Mr. Millet's report, okay? In my mind, based upon these total pieces of information, I made a judgment that he did kill those backpackers based upon his frustrations, angers, and dissatisfaction environment. And because he denied it, that stacked up and exploded once in a while, periodically, and killed those people. Before I decided to do lecture on Mr. Ivan, I web searched a little bit again, and as a result, in the August of 2019, okay, Ivan passed away for cancer. In the August of 2019, Mr. Ivan died of esophagus cancer. It was stage 4. Before he passed away, he could have a short moment to talk to his mom alone. They walked side by side for a short time, and the article said that is at the time that Mr. Ivan confessed he did all the crime. That, to tell you the truth, Mom, indeed I did all that. So my judgment turned out to be correct. Although his denial was so iron solid in the first place, I doubted his guilt. But we always must look at patterns of his behaviors and all the related incidents and the factors, and have to come up with the conclusion based on that total information. It was clear that all those pieces of information indicated the direction of him being a perpetrator, and he actually confessed. I'm gonna wrap this up by saying this. Probably because of his mother's belief in him. His mother even told all the other kids that Ivan is innocent. Okay? And everybody believed that too. Because of that trust on him by his mother, he could not say he did it, and he was brought up that way. Had to be a good kid in front of his mother and also his father. But those repressed living had to show up periodically, starting out with trespassing and so on. But still, that lifestyle of never accepting the weakness of his family, as his mother did, stayed with him all throughout his life. But he just wanted to say the truth to his mother feeling that the time was not left to him very much. Okay, this is all for Mr. Ivan's story. Okay, I hope some of the information and some of the understandings was instructive to you. Okay, up until next time, have a wonderful time. Bye bye.